and they sent us down to Logar Province in Wardak, and that was in the winter.
Yeah.
That was December, January, February, maybe into March. And then we got pulled back to Kabul. We weren't at Black Horse. We were at another base up by the palace. So if I can orient myself right.
Camp Atlas?
Nope, that wasn't. Maybe, I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
But so when we were at Black Horse, that was on the east side of the city, right?
It was, yeah.
So I believe we were on the far west side by the palace.
Yeah, because I drove by the palace before, years later.
And it was up, I remember the base was like up on a hill. You had to like kind of like switch back up on this hill, and it was up there. That's where our site was. We got pulled back from those two places, Wardak and Logar. And then I remember John telling us before we left, and I'm paraphrasing, but it was something to like, all right, boys, like, this is where it's going to get real for us. And I remember him saying, like, you're not going to be able to talk to, because we had a little bit of phone communication while we were there, but not like, nothing, basically. And he's like, you're not going to be able to talk to anybody, any of your family. You're not going to be able to, and nobody's talking about this place right now, but I promise you, in 7 months, when you guys get out of here, it's going to be the talk of the town. And he said, just be careful. We'll see you on the other side. And that was it.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
It was scary as fuck.
Yeah.
But it was awesome.
So what was your guys' like first days going in?
So when we first got there, Able, Maine, which it might have been called something different when we first got there because it was the 10th mountain that was there. And those poor guys, they had been stop lost, I think, for a while. So they had been in the Pesh and in the Cournoyer for, I think, like 15 months.
Jesus.
Fact check me on that, but they had been there for a long time. And I remember Jose Kalunga kept me with him at Able, Maine in the beginning, like for like the first maybe 5 days. And I remember dropping Spratty off at Copp, California, which is where we spent all of our time together. And it was all just bunkers, Hesco's and sandbag bunkers. And I remember thinking, holy shit, dude, this kid's out here by me. We're going to leave this kid by himself. There was a platoon, maybe a platoon minus of 10th Mountain, but they were done, dude. They were going to get ready to rip with 173rd, and they were not leaving the wire. And I remember the second morning, like we got there probably early morning the first day, dropped him off, and call it early morning the next day. Still dark out, Nick's fighting.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, holy shit. Okay, here we go.
Yeah.
So I hung out with Jose for like a week, and then it was determined that I was going to go stay with Nick for most of my time. Mike Gerbaugh was by himself a little further south of Able, and I forget what his cob was called. I can't remember. But when he had stuff going on, I would go down and move with him, and Nick would stay with his platoon of Afghans. So I floated around that little area quite a bit.
So what was the most kinetic? Like, what was your first kinetic?
Yeah, I can remember the first time I ever got into anything was at Copp, California, and it was a mortar attack.
Yeah.
And I remember standing there, like, I don't know. Honestly, I think I was putting in new piss tubes. And, there was a fucking one hit on the other side of the Pesh. And it's short distance. We were right on the water. It was pretty bad tactically. But we were right on the water. You see one hit on the other side of the water, then one hit the water, then another one hit the water but closer to me. And I'm kind of just standing there, and the Afghans are like, they're running around like crazy. And I just remember here, Doc, what the fuck are you doing? I'm like, oh, this is for real. This is it? Okay. So we had a Mark 19 that was on top of our Humvee. And then within a month, Nick and I had built a bunker for a 50 cal. So we kind of put our like battle stations together while we were there. And I think at that time we hadn't had the 50 cal bunker yet. So I got pretty good at the radio. So and put in the tick, gave the sit rep, that whole thing. And Nick was just banging on the mark for, sometimes it would be 40 minutes. I think that was a short one. I don't even know if there was gunfire on that one. And then sometimes it would be all morning.
Yeah.
So depended on the day.
So like how often did you guys get into the firefights then at Cap California?
I think, it was quite a bit.
Yeah.
It was quite a bit. It wasn't necessarily as much as the Cournoyer, but I feel like the duration of them were quite, some of them were pretty long. And, in the beginning, I think like when the thaw came and like once we got past that little mud season that they have, it was a lot.
Yeah.
Not every day, but, maybe you get June off, right? And then 4 or 5 days, you're kind of banging around. A lot of times, the worst ones were like movements, right? Like on a patrol, because we would patrol so thin. I mean, I remember we'd have to go get diesel gas from Able, Maine, and Able was probably, I don't know, call it a 7 to 10 minute ride, depending on what was going on. We called it the Cannonball Pesh River Run. And it would just be me and Nick in a Humvee and a pickup truck with a couple Afghans in it. And we'd roll back and forth all the time.
Yeah.
Sketchy, dude.
Yeah.
You're rolling there with 10 guys at most. And a couple times you'd just be like, okay, and a couple rounds would come in. They'd, obviously you're not going to stop. You just barrel through.
Yeah.
Try to pick you off or take out an Afghan. But it was pretty regular.
Yeah,
it was pretty regular. And then there was a couple lulls. You'd go like a couple weeks. For what reason, I don't know. And that's when you start getting antsy, right? When it's like when they turn the lights off. What the fuck's going on around here?
Yeah.
Why aren't we busy? So.
Yeah. So it was like what was the op tempo then of that deployment? Like because I remember what you said you went on your own.
Yeah.
You guys have operations and stuff like that.
Yeah, we patrolled all the time. So every morning we'd have to call in, give our situation report and what our actions of the day prior was and what our actions for that day and maybe the day or two after. And so basically you're just kind of overlapping, right? You give yesterday's news of what you did, what you're going to do today, and your hopes for doing tomorrow. And then the next day you just tell them the same thing, what you need, what you don't need. So we patrolled all the time. Sometimes it was in conjunction with the 173rd, like a lot of those big movements were with them. But a lot of the times we were just going out, meeting with village elders. I'd set up with my medic. We'd do a little mini clinic right there on the side of the road and then just move on. But we were out all the time. And a lot of it was mobile, like in the truck, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
And the terrain, describe the terrain of that.
So right where we were, right at Cobb, California, a little bit more of a shallow mountain right behind us with like a switchback, and right across the river was just like a mountain face. And that's where it all came from all the time. Usually right at the top of it. And there was the river right below us, and I mean the villagers would just be doing their thing in the water right there, washing their clothes, doing whatever they were doing, living their lives around us. Once we went a little further south towards Able, Maine, I hope I'm telling this stuff right, but like it kind of opened up a little more, like the river valley sprawled a little bit more, and so the perimeter of Able, Maine, which was significantly bigger, the depth of vision on like a eye line as the crow flies sight was better, and I think it was pretty much the same for Mikey too, a little further south, but it's beautiful.
Yeah,
if you like the mountains, it's absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah,
but it was taxing too. I mean, these kids, the Afghans, are running around like fucking billy goats, dude. You know?
Yeah.
And they're not carrying anything either.
Yeah.
Right? But, yeah.
Yeah. So it was like advising the Afghans because you were a corpsman on your own.
Yeah.
First deployment. You know, like whereas like Sprotty and Willis, those guys were Fallujah veterans.
Yeah.
Not infantry, but combat trackers and stuff like that.
Yeah. I think, you know, I didn't have on that deployment, I didn't have a huge role on that. Mm-hmm. Our platoon, the Afghans too, like didn't really have an actual medic in those platoons that I remember. They had a doctor, right? But they didn't have they had like doctor's aides, right? Kind of like the way the corpsmen started, like loblolly boys, right? Like they just were assistants. They didn't have any actual medical training. I didn't, you know, tactically at the time, I didn't have much to offer, you know, a platoon commander to the Afghans. So I just tried to make sure everybody stayed healthy and, you know, just work my ass off, basically. Just down for the cause, essentially.
What was the weirdest shit you ran into taking care of the Afghans?
Oh, dude.
Because you're a medic. Or, I'm sorry, you're a corpsman, so you're medic.
So, I mean, on our deployment was the time that I gave them the Imodium, the diarrhea pills.
Yeah.
Right? Because they kept blowing out our shitters.
Yeah.
And I scared the shit out of like 3 or 4 of them. I put them on a game, made them constipated. And then they took these huge shits. And then they found out I was playing a joke on them, you know. Yeah. But, you know, I mean, Man Love Thursday is a real thing. Yeah. And to be behaving like that in that kind of environment is just fucking grotesque. Yeah. So some UTIs, you knew where I was coming from. Yeah. That kind of thing. They were gross, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just smelly.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone smells, but yeah.
Certainly don't want to get laid.
No, I know, yeah.
Not with anybody there.
No, I know, yeah. Right. Yeah. How big was your unit? How big? Because you were with like a platoon, right?
Yeah.
Because you were like solo. I remember you telling me about you were solo. Like you were like for like a week or two. You were like solo.
So like, it was like probably a 4-day stretch, something like that, right? But like. Yeah, I forget. They went back to get Foo Funds or something. You remember Foo Funds?
Oh, yeah, I remember Foo Funds, yeah.
So they went back to get Foo Funds one time, and I got brought down to Able, Maine, and I think I was there for a few days by myself. We ended up in a fight, and, yeah, it just, you know. I remember one time they tried to, he was probably a platoon lieutenant. He was a second lieutenant. And I remember while they were gone, they tried to get me to go on the 173rd tried to get me to go on this op with them. I'm like, okay, I don't know, that doesn't sound right. They wanted to go to this spot that we've never been before, and, you know, but we got attacked from there all the fucking time. And I remember asking, like, are we going to have any kind of air support on standby? What's the plan? And I remember the guy kind of just being like, "You're asking a lot of questions." Like you're almost like you're not showing me the type of motivation, right? That you know. And I'm thinking to myself, okay. So of course I check in with my guys, and they're like, "Absolutely not. You're not going anywhere. Just sit tight, dude. We're gonna be right back." So I tell them that we can't go, and he made some like tongue-in-cheek comment that was like. Your sergeant, meaning Sprotty, is like a coward or something. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, let's see about that, dude. I look like a little rat. I go, run and tell him. I'm like, when he gets back, I'm like, this guy said this about you. And he's like, what? And he just took off. And he comes back, and he's got the shit-eating grin on his face. And I'm like, what happened? And he's like, nothing. We just had a conversation. And I never knew what happened. Yeah, but the guy never said boo again.
Yeah.